Good morning. Today we will take the session of process capability. It is quite an interesting topic. Every industry have their own output or product which is prepared as per the customer requirement. If you are providing customer with varied output, it may lead to loss of customer trust and loss of customer itself. If you are thinking from customer point of view, he need to adjust his machinery now and then, which is a bad scenario to any organization which thinks to grow. Today we will see the difference between Minitab and Excel. Minitab, it is easier, faster graphing, whereas Excel, it is easier for data entry. On the other side, Minitab, graph and data analysis, it takes only one step, whereas in Excel there is no preset data formatting required for analysis. In the Minitab, report writing tools within Minitab, and whereas in Excel it needs multiple tools and steps for data analysis and graph. Distribution. It doesn't matter if you are measuring height, weight, width, diameter, thickness, volume, time or money. If you measure the same dimension over time, it will produce a distribution that shows the variation. Most people have heard of a bell-shaped curve in the figure 6.2. This is a normal distribution. Distribution have a three key characteristics: center, spread and shape, which is indicated in figure 6.3. The center is usually average of all the data points, although other measures of the center can be used. Spread is the distance between minimum and the maximum value, and the shapes can be bell shaped, square, left or right and so on in figure 6.4. There are two outcomes for your improvement effort. Center the distribution over the target value as shown in figure 6.5. Second one, reduce the spread of the distribution as shown in figure 6.6. These two outcomes can be easily monitored using histograms, which help you to determine the capability of your process. Histograms and capabilities. Perhaps the easiest way to determine the center, spread and the shape of your data's distribution is with a histogram, which is indicated in figure 6.7. Histograms are simply bar chart that shows the number of times your data points falls into each of the bars on the histograms. When you add the upper and lower specification limit, it is easy to see how your data fits your customer's requirement and what improvements might be necessary. Here in figure 6.3 you can see the histogram of piston head diameters. Capability indices. Using the specification limits, there are four key indicators of process capability. CP, which is called as process capability, it measures how well your data might fit between the upper and lower specification limits. It doesn't really care if the process is centered within the limits, only if the data would fit if the data was centered. CPK is the centering capability index, where K stands for centralizing factor. The index takes into consideration the fact that your data may be not centered. CPK tells us what process is capable of doing in future, assuming it remains in the state of statistical control. It measures how well your data is centered between the upper and lower specification limit. CP and CPK use an estimation of the standard deviation to calculate the spread of your data. If the variation between sample is small, CP and CPK are better predictor of capabilities. PP is nothing but process performance index. Like CP, it measures how well your data fits within upper specification limit, lower specification limit. Unlike CP, capability process and process performance uses the actual standard deviation of your data, not the estimate. PPK is nothing but process performance centering index. Like CPK, it measures how well your data is centered between upper specification limit and lower specification limit. Again, PPK uses the standard deviation to determine the spread of your data. CP and CPK should be used together to get the sense of process capability. Using PP and PPK will help to confirm process capability. Ideally, all four indicators should be greater than 1.33. From Six Sigma perspective, CP and CPK directly correlate with Six Sigma targets. Here you can look the chart where CP, CPK, PP and PPK on one column and sigma level in another column. If CP, CPK, PP and PPK value is 1, then the sigma level is 3. If the value of CP and CPK, PP and PPK value is 1.33, the sigma level is 4. If the value is 1.66, then the sigma level is 6. If the value is 2, Six Sigma value is 6. Once you have run the histogram to calculate the CP and CPK, you can decide how to improve. If the process is off center, adjust your work so that it becomes centered. If the capability is less than 1.33, adjust your process so that there is less variation. In manufacturing, customer requires CP and CPK greater than 1.33, which is 4 sigma. If you are producing product for Asian market, especially Japan, they require CP equal to CPK greater than 1.66, that is 5 sigma. Process capability indicators. If CP is greater than CPK, then the improvement objective will be centering the process. If CP is approximately equal to CPK and both are less than 1.33, the improvement objective will be to reduce the variation. Short term and long term. There is confusion in short term versus long term process capability calculations. Any process experience more variations in the long term than in the short term. So capability will vary depending on whether you are collecting data for a short period of time, such as a day or a week, or for much longer, several months or years. For practical purpose, long term means data have been collected over a long enough period that you believe. It is likely that you have seen 80% of the process variation. The equations and basic concepts are identical for calculating short term and long term capability, except for how the standard deviation is calculated. In the capability C matrix, the standard deviation is calculated from the subgroup and therefore represents short term variation. In the P matrix, the standard deviation is calculated from all the data and therefore represent long term variations. And P matrix represent long term capability. Be alert. Many companies calculate process capability statistic using long term variation, but use the C labels. Others are careful to distinguish between long and short-term variation. Check with data expert in your company to see what standard should be maintained. Here in this table we will see some of the calculations, summary of short-term and long-term capability index. Short-term, here index name is short-term capability index, which is represented by CP. CP is equal to upper specification limit minus lower specification limit 6 sigma stand short time. Compare description. Compare the width of the specification to the short term width of the process. Index name adjusted short term capability index, which is called CPK, is equal to minimum value of the upper specification limit minus mean by 3 sigma short term, or mean minus lower specification limit by 3 sigma short term. Compares the width of the specification to the short term width of the process and accounts for off-centering of the process from the specification. Long-term capability index, which is called PP, process performance, is equal to upper specification limit minus lower specification limit 6 sigma. Sigma is nothing but standard deviation to the long term. Compares the width of the specification to the long term width of the process. Adjusted long term capability index, PPK, that is equal to minimum of upper specification limit minus mean to the 3 sigma LT, or mean minus lower specification limit 3 sigma LT. So it takes any one point, that which one comes lowest value, minimum value. Compares the width of the specification to the long term width of the process and accounts for the off centering of process from the specification. P value. The P value is shortened way of writing the probability value. This is the calculated value that results from hypothesis test. In order to decide if one or more groups differ statistically from each other, you can compare means, variations, proportion, defective and even medians to each other using hypothesis tests. Hypothesis tests consist of two statements, a null and alternative hypothesis. The null hypothesis assumes all groups are equal to each other, and the alternative can state whether at least one group is greater than, less than or not equal to the other groups. A p-value is less than 0.05 is a rejection of the idea that the groups are similar to each other statistically. It rejects the null hypothesis. Here we will see a table in which p-value is less than 0.05. It means it rejects null hypothesis. The value is significant, so it is an achievement. If p-value is greater than 0.05, it don't reject null hypothesis and the values are non-significant and no achievement. Here we will come with an example. If p-value is 0.04, it means that out of 100 samples, 4 samples supports true null hypothesis, whereas 96 samples contradicts. So there is a rational reason to reject null hypothesis, or we are 96% sure that the sample results are true and may be generalized. So here we will check the Minitab. Here you have the work table as well as session window. In the session window you will find only the output. In the worksheet, the first one is column heading. First is the naming of the column C1, and after that any parameters which you want to measure you can. Here I am writing moisture and I have taken 20 different values. These 20 different values, at least to get a precise result, minimum amount is 17. So after that I press stat board stat, and after that I click quality tools. After quality tools I click capability 6 pack, and the capability 6 pack contains 3 different distributions: normal distributions, non-normal distributions, and between within distributions. Okay, here the topic is only for the moisture, so I go for the normal distributions. After capability 6 pack window opens. The 6 pack opens, I select the, as it is only prepared for single column, so I select single column, and subgroup size can be 1, 2 to 5. Okay, but here I am taking only 1. Lower specification value as 9 and upper specification value as 30. After that I press OK. OK, I get my results. So here you can see the capability histogram on the first right side, and in the capability histogram you can see that how the values are distributed. Okay, it is nearing to the lower specification limit, so it is not into the mean. Okay, and the second one is a normal probability plot where p value is 0.40450, and which is quite larger, so the where there is a the process is not under control. Okay, where the p value should be 0.05 to say that our products are good to the customer. And in the third one you can see that the standard deviations which is 0.1997, and CP is which is capability process is 3.34, CPK is 1.24, and parts per million is 95.52. Okay, and on the other side, in the overall we can see that the process performance is 1.69, and process performance capability index process performance index is 0.63. Okay, and on the other side we can see that how the values are distributed with a mean about 9.745. And if you want to if you want to know about the Sigma benchmark, so what is the option after you get this capability 6 pack window? Okay, there is an option button is there on the window, so click that button, then it will go into the option window. The option window, and there is a one radio button at the bottom. You can see that benchmark Z as Sigma level. Then after you click that one, you press OK. After you press OK, then you can see that Sigma benchmark is 3.73 and 1.24. CPK is 1.24 and ppm is parts per million is 95.52. Okay, this is process is not so good and not so bad actually, because it is having only 1.24 and the value should be at least 1.34, but instead of 1.34 you get 1.24 CPK value. So as it is, you can see that it is the histogram is towards the lower specification limit, and it is a loss. It is a loss to the company because you are deviating your product. So maximum any company which is producing any product, it should think that the value should come within the mean, and that's how you need to say to your customers. And this is what you get in minimum capability 6 pack. Okay, same thing which I want to explain. Here you can see CP and CPK, ppm. Okay, and the steps here: statistic, quality tools, capability 6 pack, and normal. Thank you for watching from Blue Line.